Can we
Mhm.
talk a little bit about your upcoming class on Berdyaev? We haven't gotten to that
Oh,
yet.
sure, we should do that.
Yeah, yeah, what do you have in mind? Is maybe because we can also sort of separate out the segment to let people know what you're going to be doing. It's on what is it, December 16th, right?
I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
Monday, December 16th at 7 p.m. Central
Mm.
Time.
yeah. Well, I thought, yeah, I mean, I thought I would do, the the whole this whole series concentrating on personalism and kind of pick starting off with Berdyaev because uh he he is my favorite personalist, and Spencer will be there to keep me honest um
I'll
uh,
try.
about it. But I'm going to focus, not just on his personalism, but try to look at, his whole lifetime and his, the various sources of his thought. Um, Probably the two books that I most focus on that are The Destiny of Man and Slavery and Freedom. I think Slavery and Freedom is my favorite book of his. And one of his crucial concepts, I think, is objectification, and as the opposite of personhood and the opposite of spirit, because he talks also a lot about kind of spirit, freedom, and personhood as being um, not quite synonyms, but on one side of the aisle, and domination and objectification on another. And one of the things that really impressed me about him was kind of the rigor with which he rejected any objectifications of human beings, which, as a social scientist, that's really what I was trained to do was, to classify, to do quantitative research, to put people into categories, which is, simply a way of objectifying. I mean, I think, the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual is a manual of objectification. I would have loved to see what Berdyaev would have written about that. Um, but I think his message that we need to reject objectification is one that's probably even more relevant now than in his day, because I think the forces of objectification have really expanded in their power. Um, and we need to think more about how we can bring about a more spiritual power that can address this. If that and some of the objectifications include our institutions. Like, we talked about the military as an institution, but capitalism as an institution is also a means of objectifying. Um, and objectification can be a great danger for the church itself. I think we've seen some of the problems that have occurred, within our own church and within other churches. So that I think is what I'm mostly going to talk about. I'm going to give some of his biography. I love the fact that he was imprisoned by both the Tsar and the communists. That uh, that his message was revolutionary. I want to look to it. The In some senses, he was an anarchist. He had one of my favorite quotes from Berdyaev is from Slavery and Freedom, when he talks about um, the words of Caiaphas, that it is better for one man to die for the sake of the nation. And he says that that is the state's confession of faith. The state will always say that it's better for an innocent person to die for the sake of the nation. And in that moment, the state always gives its vote for the execution of Jesus, which I've read that quote at so many demonstrations that we've had, and we do an annual Stations of the Cross publicly on Good Friday, and I always read that there. So I think he just, he has some real insight, in some things more perhaps than Mounier and Maritain. Um, but then in the second session, what I want to do is to look more broadly at European personalism, centered on the French personalism with Mounier, Berdyaev, Maritain, bringing in Martin Buber, some Jacques Ellul, since he was kind of a later personalist, but also a sociologist. So I can appreciate his sociology as well. And John McMurray, who was a British personalist of about that time. Look at that. And then for the final section, want to also bring in American personalism, and kind of focus on how American personalism, which was mostly Protestant, had a major effect on Martin Luther King. It was European personalism, which had the major effect on Dorothy Day and Peter Morin. And I still haven't figured all this out. I've got to do a lot more reading on the American personalism, but somehow see how these two different branches, led to figures who were not just theorists, but were activists and very much trying to put personalism into practice and to use it for changing society. So that's sort of what I'm hoping to build up to. Does that make some sense, sir?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a great course to chart.